Democratic Ohio Senate candidate, Representative Tim Ryan, turned boos to applause after he brought up January 6th during a Fox News town hall with Republican challenger J.D. Vance Tuesday evening. Let's watch.
They stormed the Capitol on January 6th. They beat up 140 police officers, killed one. Okay, they killed one. We all watched the video. We all watched the video, and
Let him finish, please.
And I'm happy to have this conversation. I'm not afraid to have this conversation. These are the conversations we need to have in this country. I welcome you guys. Let's just be respectful, but I'm not afraid to stand here and defend my position. On January 6th, 140, I sit on the subcommittee that funds the Capitol Police. These are my friends. 140 of them got hurt, and some of them still can't go back to work because they were beat up with lead pipes, they were sprayed with pepper spray, they were beaten with flagpoles. J.D. Vance raised money for the insurrectionists. He made several social media posts to raise money for them. Now, again, I don't care what your politics are, but Americans should say no. We have to say no to that.
Meanwhile, on the topic of inflation and the economy, J.D. Vance had this to say about the Inflation Reduction Act.
I think one of the good things that came out of the Inflation Reduction Act, maybe the only good thing to come out of the Inflation Reduction Act, is that it does empower Medicare to actually negotiate with some of these prescription drug providers on prescription drugs. That's a good thing. It brings down costs for families. And look, we're the greatest country in the world. You should not be unable to afford insulin in the greatest country in the world because you can't afford it. That's got to change, and I think that we're making good progress there.
A new Cygnal survey of a little over 1,500 likely voters in Ohio found Vance holds 48.2% of the vote compared to Ryan's 43.7%, with a margin of error that puts the two candidates in a statistical dead heat.
Now this race isn't quite as close as the other ones we've been looking at very closely: Nevada, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and to some extent Arizona. I think J.D. Vance is pretty solidly ahead. Ohio's a redder state than Pennsylvania, and then Arizona is now. So we'll see. But yeah, I give Tim Ryan props for doing that event. I thought his response was very good. It was respectful. Look, people don't want to be, I think, hectored about January 6th. They don't want to be made to feel like that's all they're allowed to care about and that their whole lives should be reoriented around how awful that was. And because it can be, that rhetoric can go over the top. But he's not wrong. I take his point. Look, it was bad. It was embarrassing. I was there too. I covered it. It was god awful. It was some really bad behavior, to which it's reasonable to blame Trump to some degree, and also Republican figures who were obsessed with kind of doing that. Well, it was actually Democrats, or actually it was Antifa, or actually it wasn't that bad, or actually they were the Patriots. All of that is nonsense. We all know that's nonsense.
Yeah, there was obsession on the other side, and I think pointing out that J.D. Vance didn't just not focus on 1-6 or kind of superficially defend them, but raised money to get people out of jail who broke the law, especially when you're coming from a conservative perspective and arguing that you're the one that respects law and order.
Right, and they all went off,
and you're the one that doesn't want criminals to get out of jail.
For the allegation that she was supported the bail funds for certain.
Right, you're literally wanting to bail people out, not on the basis of them being innocent or being wrongly accused, but because you simply think that what they did, the crime that they committed, was the kind of crime that you like.
To be fair, we're civil libertarians. I think they deserve absolute due process.
Of course.
Some of them have been held in solitary confinement, and I don't think anyone should be held in solitary confinement.
But again, that's not the issue. And I think that Tim Ryan was smart to bring up the actual issue, which is that Republicans tried to make some of these figures into kind of mascots for themselves. We see Charlie Kirk right now. He was advocating for the man who attacked Pelosi, raising money for his bail fund. So this is a trend that's come out, and I think it's smart for Tim Ryan to start to try to exploit with the fact that Republicans, I think, have overstepped.
I mean, Charlie
in this
Kirk also
phase.
said the other day that someone should bail out DePape and then find out, what was actually going on there.
Yeah.
Again, he gave an interview to the police saying that he was a crazy person who wanted to kidnap Nancy Pelosi because he's a crazy person. Yeah. Again, I think we've solved that one.
Well, I also want to say I thought that it was refreshing to hear J.D. Vance speak positively about prescription drug reduction. Like I said this before, I think we will live in a better country if Republicans and Democrats can just agree that some things are basic goods, like lowering the cost of healthcare, instead of trying to use these as opportunities to snipe each other.
Well, it's similar with the price negotiation. I mean, it's similar to the argument I've made against the some of the student loan subsidies and the income-based repayment, that if you just subsidize this and you're going to forgive it, I mean, whatever you think about that policy, that's clearly going to have the effect of raising the prices when the institution that gets to charge the prices, if you're covering the cost, they'll just raise the prices astronomically. Like we concede that that's going to happen. We have to fix it. So that's of course going to be true. It's the same principle in a sense. If the government is covering it but is putting no constraints over what can be charged or no even ability to discuss what's going to be charged, what's going to be charged is going to be outrageous because the cost, the sticker price is confused. Is how it's being paid for is murkier. Is more societally diffuse.
Well, I certainly agree that we have to be very targeted about bringing down the cost of colleges, and it's very disappointing that Democrats haven't been talking about that. It isn't enough just to cancel student debt. Absolutely not. I don't want to say Bernie again, but that's why he packaged that plan along with a plan to make public colleges tuition free. Republican Representative Liz Cheney endorsed Ryan over Vance in the Senate race, according to Hill reporting. This is the latest sign of how far Cheney has fallen out with the Trump-dominated wing of her party. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, no surprise there. There's really no future for her in the Republican Party. It's not even, it's personality-based at this point. She's made her whole personality opposition to Trump, and at this point, virtually no one who voted for the impeachment or to advance the impeachment charges to the Senate is faring well politically. That Republicans did end up making that a pretty significant line in the sand. Some of the senators, like Romney, are more protected, et cetera, but others are retiring. Toomey, the Pennsylvania senator, is retiring. But yeah, she is more a Democrat rhetorically than anything else now. I mean, she could get a show on MSNBC.
Oh, she'll be taking over for Whoopi at The View.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. But it is always interesting how that kind of person that we're describing, the kind of Bush neocon, has the falling out with Trump, then becomes more Democratic, and then ends up very accurately just changing all of their views to be Democratic Party. Like it's more conceivable to see her like headlining an event with. I could imagine her headlining an event with like Robin DiAngelo or something at this point. Well, that is easier to conceive of, even though ostensibly she will say, no, I'm just a Republican conservative, but Trump is so unconscionable, I can't have anything to do with this. But she's going to update all her other policy views, except her foreign policy views,
I think that which
are now well in keeping with the Democratic
Party. I think it's because a lot of conservatives were kind of socially liberal. And now when we say that today, we think of like a much more farther to the left.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, I like gay people, I think gay people should get married. Like those are such mainstream
she has a gay sister.
Opinions now.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, they weren't so happy to embrace that.
They went back and forth on
sister.
that one,
But these days, most Democrats, frankly, are pretty economically conservative, like the old school Republicans. There was never that much difference between the two, which is why I think this anti-establishment valence has a lot of possibility on both sides of the aisle. Well, we'll have more Rising for you right after this.